Hey guys, today I'm going to go over chain rule, trig derivatives, and product rule. So first we're going to do chain rule, and as you can see here, there are two formulas that you need to follow. First is when f of x is to the nth power. So first you're going to take the exponent and you're going to multiply it, and then you're going to keep the function the same, and then you're going to subtract the exponent by 1, and then your final step is that you're going to multiply the function by its you're going to multiply by the derivative of the function. Okay, so if we look at this problem here, we're going to use this formula that we just talked about, and we're going to apply it. So first you're going to bring this exponent out like it says here, and then you're going to keep this function the same, and then you're going to subtract the exponent by 1, which is 5, and then you take the derivative of the inside, which is going to be 2. So if you want to simplify, your final answer is just going to be this. Alright, moving on. If it says to find the derivative of any functions that look like this, well, first you're going to take the derivative of f, and then you're going to keep the inside the same, and then you're going to multiply by the derivative of the inside, which is g of x. So in this problem here, we're going to do the exact same thing. Sine of x, the derivative of sine is going to be cosine, and as it says here in the rule, you're going to keep the inside the same, so x to the third, and then it says to multiply by the derivative of this, which is g of x in this formula, so it's going to be 3x squared. So your final answer is going to be this, okay? Moving on, so this is actually these are more problems of that first chain rule formula that I gave you here, okay? So first we're gonna look at this problem. So y prime would equal, first you're gonna get the exponent, multiply it to the front, and then keep the function the same, and then subtract this exponent by 1, which is just 5. 6 minus 1 is 5, and then you're going to multiply it by the derivative of this function, which is actually 6x plus 2. Okay, so your final answer is going to be, well, if you have to distribute this, right? So your final answer is going to be 36x plus 12. Don't forget your parentheses, because if you don't have it there, it can be interpreted another way, so your answer could be wrong. So and then you're gonna just multiply what I had over here. Okay, so this is gonna be your final answer. All right, moving on. So if there's an exponent in the denominator, write the exponent as a negative. So an example of that would be, if it's 1 over x squared, then you're going to rewrite it to be x to the negative second power. So you're going to see that you can't take the derivative of this, so you have to rewrite it as this, because in these rules, it just says that it's to the nth power. So it's way better to take the derivative when the exponent is just on the top in the numerator instead of in the denominator, okay? So we're gonna do more problems, but let's just keep going. If there's a radical, then put the exponent as a fraction, okay? So again, we can't take the derivative of a radical x, so we're just gonna rewrite it as x to the 1/2 power, because they're the exact same thing. This is also the exact same thing. Anyways, let's do this problem right here. So we're gonna rewrite this as x squared minus 7 x to the 1/2 power. So these are identical. These are the same thing. And then when you take the derivative of this, y prime is going to equal, well, first you take the exponent, you bring it out, and you multiply it by, you keep this, function the same, and then you subtract 1/2 minus 1, which is just negative 1/2, and then you multiply it by the derivative of the inside, being 2x minus 7. So your final simplified answer will be, if you distribute this again, it's going to be x minus 7 over 2, parentheses, don't forget that, to this, But again, if you want to rewrite it to simplify it more, remember this negative exponent means that it goes in the denominator. So if you rewrite it, it's going to be this, right? So first this shows that this goes in the denominator, and the 1/2 shows that it's a radical. So this is what I showed right here, and it's below the, it's in the denominator, okay? So that would be your final answer. Moving on, so we're going to just review trig derivatives. So derivative of sine is just going to be cosine. Derivative of cosine is going to be negative sine. Derivative of tangent is secant squared. Derivative of secant is secant x tangent x. Derivative of cosecant x is negative cosecant x cotangent x. And the derivative of cotangent x is negative cosecant squared x, okay? So notice how in these derivatives, any trig that starts with a c, it has the derivative has a negative. So like if you look at these others, these are all positive, okay? So just keep that in mind. You should never forget these minus signs, okay? So in these, let's look at these two problems. So the derivative of this is going to be, so as we said in this rule here, we're going to take the derivative of this first, of f, and then you keep this the same, right? And then you take the derivative of this, okay? So keep that in mind, and we're going to do this problem right here. So first, this is like f, and this is like g, right? So first you take the derivative of f, or sine of x, which is cosine of x. You keep this part the same, and then you multiply by the derivative of g, or in this case, it's x squared plus x, which is 2x plus 1. So your final answer is going to be 2x plus 1 cosine. So that's your final answer. Okay, let's go to this next problem. So in this problem, as you can see, it's cosine squared x, okay? So in these types of problems, you have to rewrite it as cosine x squared. So these are equivalent. This is the exact same thing. You should know how to do this, okay? So this is a rule. So I'll give you more problems. So if I wrote this, what would this be equivalent to? It would be equivalent to sine of x squared to the 5th power, okay? So just keep that in mind. You should know that. So moving on, the derivative of this is going to be, well, first, there's a 2 in the exponent. So what did we say about the chain rule when the exponent is that? We're going to multiply it out, keep the function the same, subtract it by 1, and then your final step is to multiply the derivative of f of x. So multiply the exponent out, and then you keep this inside, or the function, the same, and then you subtract 2 by 1, which is just 1, or it's just nothing over here. It's the same thing, right? And then you're going to multiply by the derivative of here, which is negative sine of x. And then, furthermore, you have to take the derivative of x, which is just 1, or you don't need to write anything. Anyways, if you simplify this, the answer is going to be negative 2 cosine x sine of x, okay? All right, moving on. So now we're going to go over the product rule, okay? This is when two functions are multiplied by each other and you want the derivative of it. So the derivative of f of x times g of x is going to be f of x times the derivative of g of x plus f of x prime, the derivative of f of x, and then you just keep g of x the same. So it doesn't matter which one you do first because it says it's addition, it doesn't really matter. So yeah, let's go to this problem right here. So first, let's use the formula that I gave right here. So the derivative is going to equal f of x. So this is like f and this is like g, right? So this is like f of x, g of x. So if we look at this formula that I provided, we're going to do f of x, just keep it the same, times derivative of g of x, which is just 3. You add it to derivative of f of x, which is just 1, because the derivative of x is 1, and then you keep g of x the same. Okay, so your simplified answer is going to be 3x plus x plus 4, 3x plus 4, which is also equal to 6x plus 4. So that's your final answer. All right, now let's do this problem. So as you can see, these are being multiplied, right? So negative 2 is practically like f of x. This is practically like g of x. Now remember, this g of x function is using chain rule because you have to take the derivative of the inside, right? So, okay. So first you're going to keep f of x the same, which is just negative 2. Take the derivative of g of x, which is cosine of x, times the derivative of x, which is just 1, so you don't need to write anything. And then you're going to add it to, you're going to take the derivative of f of x, which is 0, because the derivative of a number is just 0. And then you multiply it to the g of x, which you just keep the same. So your final simplified answer is going to be negative cosine of x, because this 0 cancels this whole part out. Okay? So now these problems are getting harder because, first of all, it has x in it, and this part you have to multiply again by the inside, like we did over here, but we multiplied by 1, but we didn't keep it in. Okay, so if we look here, the derivative of this product is going to be, you keep this the same, so this is like f of x, this is like f of x, and this is like g of x. Okay, so you take f of x, keep it the same, take the derivative of this, which is, well, first you got to take the derivative of this trig, keep this part the same, and then you multiply by the derivative of this inside, okay? So the derivative of 6x is just 6. And then you add this to, well, first you gotta take the derivative of f of x right here, which is just 3. And then you keep g of x the same. So then your final simplified answer is going to be 18x cosine of 6 times x, plus 3 sine of 6x. Okay, so that's your final answer. All right, now as we said in this problem here, remember, if there's a exponent after the trig and before the x, this is automatically going to go out and multiply this whole thing, okay? So using that rule, we have to rewrite this. So we rewrite this as sine of x to the 5th to the 3rd power, right? So we're going to bring this exponent and bring it out here and multiply this whole thing. Okay? So you guys should really remember that. So the derivative of this is going to be, you bring the exponent out, you keep the inside, or the this function the same, and then you subtract this exponent by 1, so 3 minus 1 is 2, and then you take the derivative of this inside, right? So when we take the derivative of this, first what we got to do is only take the derivative of this part, which is cosine of x to the 5th, and we kept this part the same. Do you remember? In this one? So we take the derivative of that, keep this the same, and then you multiply the derivative of this. So, so first we took the derivative of this, which came out to be cosine, and then you keep this the same, and then your last step is going to be taking the derivative of x to the 5th, okay? So that's going to be 5x to the 4th. So your final simplified answer is going to be 15x to the 4th, sine of 2x, sine squared, plus of x to the 5th, and then cosine of x to the 5th. Okay, so as you can see here, I rewrote it. I took this squared and I put it in between, like it was given in this problem, right? I put it in between. So yeah, this is your final answer. This was the hardest problem so far. Alright. Yeah, so that wraps up about everything. So I hope you guys understood everything. Thank you for watching.